Can I show you something? It's a stunning place, huh? It's the kind of place that I've been wanting to shoot a documentary in since I first picked up a camera. So when I first came across Christmas Island, I kind of knew that was my chance to make that dream a reality. But of course, there's a problem. Because I don't know about you, but I've never done a project this big. So how do you convince someone to give you money for a project if you can't prove you can actually pull it off? Over the last few months, I've researched every possible way of funding a feature documentary, so I thought I'd share some lessons with you on what the main avenues are, how they work, and how you might raise money using them. You ready? Crowdfunding. This always seemed like the most obvious to me. You tell the public about your project, you get them excited, and then they want to give you money. But does that actually work? And how do you actually maximize your chances? I asked a bunch of people in my network who've raised more than $20,000 for their film projects, and I looked at hundreds of successful crowdfunding campaigns. And after looking at all of that, here are the 4 things that every successful crowdfunding campaign has. 1, a unique concept. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to come up with this insane new concept or be the world's most skilled filmmaker to have a unique concept. All you need to do is tell a story in a new way and in a way that is specific to you. Take this film, The Territory. There are plenty of documentaries about the Amazon, but none that have really been shown from this participatory style where you become part of the community for a few weeks. So that made it quite unique. Also, make sure your film touches on a current topic or timely issue. Like in this case, The Territory was filmed around the upcoming elections of the local country, meaning that people were invested to see what was going to happen. Second is a great sizzle reel. People who are not in the industry have no idea what a treatment is or a script. I would actually say that 90% of people who go to your crowdfunding campaign watch the sizzle reel and nothing else. So that one really has to hit home. But what even is a sizzle reel? Think about it like a trailer that you make before you even make the movie. So you go out, you collect a bunch of footage, and you create a visual representation of what you want the movie to look like later. It's a creative piece that shows the viewer the core issue you're wanting to discuss, the main storytelling methods or devices that you're going to employ, and why it is urgent now. Because you want the money now, not later. I'll attach a link to a sizzle reel that we did for a recent feature documentary so you can get an idea what it's all about. Third, community building. You want people to get invested and to have a stake in the story you're telling. You can do that in a number of different ways. 1, you can offer rewards, give them a credit on the film for donating to your project. You can give exclusive updates only to people who gave money, or have exclusive screenings so they can see the movie first. There are many options, just make sure to include the donors in what you're doing. Fourth, a team. For God's sake, please don't do this alone. I've heard too many horror stories of people burning out from crowdfunding, and having a team really has 2 advantages. 1, you get to split the workload, but 2, you get to reach a much wider network of people because I'm sorry to tell you, the people who are most likely to donate to a first-time filmmaker's crowdfunding campaign are people they already know. So the more people in your team, the more people you know, the more money you make. That's it on crowdfunding. Next, we'll talk about grants. Grant funding is done in one of 2 ways: film grants or non-film grants. Film grants are offered by film-related institutions like the Catapult Film Fund or the International Documentary Association. They simply put out an open call for projects, you apply, and then you either get it or you don't. And mostly, you don't. While they do say that they support first-time filmmakers, the reality is that film grants are very competitive because essentially there's only other filmmakers applying, and you're asked to submit a whole array of documentation, including a treatment, script, financing plan, budget, fundraising plan, marketing plan, access to audience, distribution plan, etc, etc, etc. Sure, they might accept first-time filmmakers in general, but the chance of you submitting high-quality documents in all of these different categories is just not very high as a first-time filmmaker, which is why I much prefer non-film grants. Most often these grants are offered by organizations that support the issue or cause that you're trying to address with your film. So for example, I'm making a film about the challenges of remote communities in isolated islands. So there are organizations out there that support causes for community development or community resilience, which is something that my film can achieve. There's 2 advantages here. 1 is that they don't require all this film-specific documentation, and 2, you are likely going to be one of a few or maybe the only filmmaker submitting a grant to this project. The downside is that they will want lots of documentation proving that you can create tangible outcomes for the cause you're addressing. A film is often not enough, so you might want to have a public screening, an impact campaign, surveys, an engagement strategy, something along those lines. I still find this 10 times easier than trying to compete with 100 billion other filmmakers or trying to be the next Steven Spielberg. This is actually the method that landed me my first $5,000 for my feature documentary, but I only got there after a lot of rejections. So let me make this easy for you. 1. Pick the smaller, less popular grants. The funding amounts are usually lower, but there's also a lot less competition. 2. Call them first, email them, ask questions. Firstly, that means they will know you when you finally apply. And secondly, you'll be much clearer on any of the questions that you're unsure about. 3. Back up everything you say. Every statement you make about the state of the world or about the film industry or about your approach, back it up with evidence, support letters, CVs, and that links to point number 4. Find a mentor or an executive producer with more experience than you that will write you a letter saying they will make sure the project's done to a certain quality standard. That just assures the grant people that it's going to get done and it's going to get done to a certain standard. 5. Resubmit as often as it takes. The chance of you getting a grant as a first-time filmmaker is never high, but on the second, third, fourth try, you will know the grant assessment team intimately, you'll be besties, and at that point, your chances are much, much higher. And that's it for grants. Now, onto partnerships. Partnerships are exactly what they sound like. Regardless of what topic or issue your documentary is focusing on, 99% of the time, someone will have thought about doing something about it before. There are NGOs, foundations, community groups, local councils, charities, activists. For example, if the topic of a documentary is on healthcare, I guarantee there are organizations and people out there already doing something about it. Find the relevant people already working in the space that your documentary focuses on and introduce yourself to them. Show them the project you're doing and develop a relationship. Once you've done that, they can support you with funding in 3 different ways. 1, they can support your existing crowdfunding campaign by giving it more reach or just a more professional backing so people respect the project more. Secondly, you can jointly apply to other grants. There are certain grants that are only available to organizations and now you have access to them. And thirdly, they can give you money directly. Some of these organizations are government funded and have specific funding buckets just for impact campaigns, which your film can achieve. For example, for my Christmas Island documentary, I'm partnering with the local shire, which gives me access to more grants and a wider reach with my crowdfunding campaign. All right, now let's talk about sponsors. Sponsors are a great option to fund your documentary project, especially as a first-time filmmaker. And luckily, we live in an age where brands increasingly care about doing good, or at least looking good. That includes promoting good causes, especially if there's a film at the end that people will watch to become aware of the brand. Sarcasm aside, think about what brand might be interested in your kind of project. In my feature documentary on Christmas Island, it might be hiking or outdoor gear related brands, ecotourism businesses, educational institutions, travel agencies, local industry. All you need to do is reach out in a simple email. Don't write up any major sponsor packages, just to give them an 8 to 10 slide info deck about what it is you're doing, and very importantly, who your target audience is that you're wanting to approach. The email has to be nothing more than 4 lines. Something like, hey person, we saw you involved in the marketing side of X company. We'll soon commence production on a feature documentary project doing XYZ. Are you available for a call within the next 2 weeks to find out if our audience is one of your priorities? Attached is a short info deck. It also contains a link to our trailer. Regards, that's it. That's all you need. Shorter the better. That way they'll actually read it. And that's it. These are the 4 main sources of funding that I'm hitting up to raise money for my first feature documentary. But my reality is just run reality. If you want to see how a bunch of different people in different niches from different backgrounds are raising money for their documentaries, I put the spotlight on a different person every week from one of my readers on my newsletter. And there's bound to be someone in exactly your niche. Anyway, I should get home. The day's begun. Lots to do. But I'll see you next time.